Ethan had never thought of himself as a hero. He was just a kid after all. But sometimes life presents you with a moment that forces you to choose, to stand up or stay silent. And in that store, with everyone watching, Ethan made a choice that would change everything. Ethan followed his mom into the local grocery store, his mind wandering as he passed the familiar aisles. He wasn't paying much attention at first, but something caught his eye near the checkout. A store manager was speaking harshly to an elderly black woman, accusing her of trying to steal. The woman, frail and confused, pleaded her innocence, but the manager wasn't listening. Ethan's heart raced as he watched. He glanced around, noticing that no one else seemed willing to intervene. People were walking by, pretending not to see. His mom hadn't noticed the commotion yet, but Ethan couldn't just walk away. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward. His voice shook as he called out to the manager, "She didn't steal anything. You should check the cameras." His words hung in the air, and suddenly, all eyes were on him. The store manager turned, clearly surprised to see a kid challenging him, but Ethan held his ground. The injustice of it all burned inside him, and he couldn't stay quiet. Manager, condescending. "And who are you to tell me how to do my job?" Ethan, firm. "Someone who knows what's right." The store manager hesitated, then glanced toward the cameras. Realizing that Ethan was right, he stammered an apology to the woman. Ethan's heart pounded as the situation diffused, but something told him this was only the beginning. As he and his mom left the store, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that his actions were going to lead to something much bigger. After the incident at the store, Ethan returned to his normal life. But little did he know, the choice he made that day had already started a chain reaction that was about to change everything. What began as a simple act of standing up for someone would soon turn into something much bigger than he could have ever imagined. Ethan woke up the next day thinking that nothing much had changed. He ate breakfast, grabbed his backpack, and headed off to school, just like any other day. But as he sat through his classes, he started noticing something strange. His classmates were staring at him more than usual, whispering to each other, pointing. It wasn't long before his friend, Ben, pulled him aside in the hallway. Ben, excited. "Dude, you're all over the internet." Ethan frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Ben, "That thing you did at the store, standing up for that woman, it's viral. Someone recorded it and posted it online. Everyone's talking about it." Ethan was floored. He hadn't expected anyone to notice, let alone post a video online. His stomach flipped with a mixture of nerves and excitement. Was it a good thing that people were seeing it? He wasn't sure how to feel. By lunchtime, teachers were even congratulating him on his bravery. The video was spreading fast, gaining thousands of views by the hour. When he got home that afternoon, Ethan's mom met him at the door with a look of surprise on her face. Mom, smiling. "You've become a bit of a local hero, haven't you?" Ethan felt his cheeks flush. "I didn't mean for it to be a big deal. I just couldn't stand seeing her treated like that." His mom's face softened with pride. "It was a big deal, Ethan. You did the right thing, and sometimes that's all it takes for the world to take notice." The attention continues to grow, with the local news outlets reaching out to Ethan's family for interviews. But not everyone is supportive. Ethan starts hearing whispers at school, some kids making fun of him, calling him the hero wannabe. He brushes it off at first, but the negativity begins to weigh on him. Despite the negative comments, most people seemed to admire what Ethan had done. He tried to focus on the good, but the viral attention made him uncomfortable. Was he ready for all of this? After all, he was just a kid who did what he thought was right. Ethan wasn't sure how to handle being in the spotlight, and part of him wished it would all just go away. That was until a sleek black SUV pulled up in front of his house one evening. Ethan's mom opened the door, and a well-dressed man stepped out of the car. He introduced himself as Jonathan Pierce, the CEO of a large company. He wanted to meet Ethan personally and talk about what had happened at the store. Ethan's mom stared in shock, but the man smiled warmly at Ethan and said, "You've got something special, kid. I want to help you." Ethan, standing on the porch, stunned, wondering why a CEO would be interested in him. What could this mean? It's not every day a CEO shows up at your door. Ethan had no idea who Jonathan Pierce was or why he cared about what happened at the store, but what the CEO was about to offer would change Ethan's life in ways he never imagined. This was more than just a thank you. It was the start of something bigger. Ethan sat nervously across from Jonathan Pierce at the kitchen table. His mom had insisted on making tea, but the atmosphere was anything but casual. Jonathan was friendly, but he had the air of someone who wasn't used to small talk. Ethan could sense the seriousness behind his visit, and he couldn't help but feel intimidated. Jonathan, calmly. First of all, I want to say how impressed I am with your courage. It's not easy to stand up for someone, especially when you're young and people expect you to stay quiet. What you did took guts. Ethan shifted in his seat. I just did what anyone else would have done. Jonathan, smiling. Maybe, but not everyone actually does it. That's what makes you different. Jonathan began to explain why he had come. He had seen the video of Ethan standing up for the woman at the store, and it had reminded him of something from his own life. Jonathan told Ethan a story about how, when he was a young boy, he had witnessed something similar, an act of racism in public. But unlike Ethan, Jonathan had been too afraid to speak up. Jonathan, somber. I've spent my entire life trying to make up for that moment. It's part of why I started my company, part of why I fight for equality in everything I do, and when I saw what you did, it reminded me of the courage I wish I had at your age. Ethan didn't know how to respond. He hadn't thought much about how his actions could impact someone like Jonathan, someone so successful. But as he listened, Ethan started to feel the weight of his actions more than ever before. Jonathan then made an unexpected offer. He invited Ethan to come visit his company's headquarters and meet some of the people who worked there. Jonathan believed that Ethan had leadership potential and wanted to give him an opportunity to learn about how one act of courage could lead to bigger changes in life. Ethan couldn't believe what he was hearing. An internship? At a major company? It seemed too good to be true. But Jonathan was serious. He wanted Ethan to see how standing up for what was right could create opportunities he never thought possible. Before leaving, Jonathan handed Ethan his business card and said, "Think about it. I believe in you, and I think this could be the start of something incredible." Ethan's mom beamed with pride as she thanked Jonathan for coming. As the door closed behind him, Ethan sat back, feeling overwhelmed. The possibilities were exciting, but they also came with a lot of pressure. That night, Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind raced with thoughts of what could happen next. He had never imagined that defending someone at a store could lead to all of this. But just as he was drifting off to sleep, his phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number, and it read, "Be careful. Not everyone's happy with what you did." Who sent the message? And what challenges will Ethan face next? Ethan thought the hardest part was over. He had done the right thing, and now it seemed like life was giving him new opportunities. But not everyone was happy with Ethan's sudden rise to attention. The message he received was just the beginning of a new challenge, one that would test his courage in ways he hadn't expected. Ethan stared at his phone screen, his heart pounding. The message was short but chilling. Be careful. Not everyone's happy with what you did. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him, that maybe standing up for the woman in the store had made him a target. But who could it be? And why? Ethan didn't tell his mom about the message. He didn't want her to worry. But as the days passed, he noticed things were changing. At school, some kids treated him like a hero, but others acted distant, as if they didn't trust him anymore. Even some of his teachers seemed uncomfortable with the attention he was getting. It was strange, and it made Ethan feel like he was stuck in the middle of something bigger than himself. The tension escalates when Ethan receives another message, this time more direct. Stay quiet, or things will get worse. Ethan starts to feel afraid, unsure of who is behind the threats or what they want from him. But, even in the face of fear, Ethan knows he can't back down. With Jonathan's offer hanging over him, Ethan decides to push forward despite the threats. He accepts the invitation to visit the company's headquarters and takes the first step toward exploring this new opportunity. When he arrives at the company's main office, he is blown away by the scale and professionalism of everything. Jonathan gives him a tour, introducing him to several key executives, all of whom praise Ethan for his courage. But there's something else Ethan learns that day, a secret about Jonathan's company that not many people know. Jonathan reveals that his company has been actively working on initiatives to combat racial injustice in the corporate world. The mentorship program he's creating, which Ethan is now a part of, is designed to help young leaders rise up and make a difference in the world. Jonathan, serious. This is bigger than just one act of kindness, Ethan. What you did at the store is a reminder that real change starts with small actions. But I want to help you understand that change also requires leadership, courage, and perseverance. As Ethan leaves the company headquarters, he feels a sense of purpose growing inside him. But when he gets home, there's another message waiting for him. This time, it's a letter slipped under his door. The note is simple, but the words are haunting. You can't trust everyone around you. Who is sending these messages? Is Ethan's new opportunity really as good as it seems? And what dangers lie ahead? Ethan thought he was on the right path, standing up for what was right, gaining opportunities, and meeting influential people. But as the anonymous messages kept coming, the weight of fear and doubt began to creep into his mind. Not everyone was happy with his actions, and it was clear that someone wanted to stop him from going any further. The message under Ethan's door sent chills down his spine. You can't trust everyone around you. It was ominous, and Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming. He started to look at people differently, wondering if someone close to him was responsible for the messages. Was it someone at school? Someone he didn't expect? Ethan tried to carry on as usual, but the pressure was getting to him. He was doing well in school, meeting with Jonathan, and learning about leadership and justice, but the threats in the background weighed heavily on him. The negative whispers at school didn't help either. Some of his classmates began accusing him of trying to be a hero for attention, or milking the situation. His best friend Ben remained by his side, but even Ben noticed how things were changing for Ethan. Ben, concerned. Man, why are people being like this? You didn't ask for any of this. You just did what was right. Ethan shrugged, feeling the burden of it all. I guess people don't like it when someone stands out. One day at school, Ethan finds a note in his locker. This time, it's more threatening than ever before. Back off, or you'll regret it. The warning is clear. Whoever is behind these messages doesn't want Ethan involved with Jonathan or his new opportunities. Ethan begins to feel the tension reaching a breaking point. He starts avoiding certain places at school, feeling like someone could be watching him. But despite the fear, he continues to push forward. He meets with Jonathan regularly and begins learning more about how the company is trying to address inequality in corporate spaces. Jonathan teaches Ethan about the importance of speaking up, even when others try to silence you. Just as Ethan begins to feel more confident, the pressure mounts when he finds out that someone at school has been spreading lies about him, claiming that he was only defending the woman at the store to gain attention. The rumor spreads fast, and soon Ethan finds himself the target of bullies. Ethan is confronted by a group of boys at school who begin mocking him, calling him a wannabe hero and accusing him of doing everything for fame. The bullying escalates, and Ethan feels completely cornered, unsure of how to respond. Just when it seems like things can't get worse, the boys make a chilling comment. We know what's coming for you. Better stay out of it. Ethan is left wondering if these bullies are connected to the anonymous threats, and the chapter ends with him feeling more vulnerable than ever. Is the danger at school more serious than it seems? Who is behind the threats, and what will Ethan do next? Ethan had faced challenges before, but this was different. The anonymous threats, the rumors at school, and the growing tension weighed him down. But something deep inside Ethan told him that backing down wasn't an option. He had come too far, and there were too many people counting on him to make a difference. Ethan sat in his room, replaying the events of the past few days in his mind. The bullying, the threats, the doubts, all of it was pushing him to his limits. He felt torn between wanting to step back and just be a normal kid again, and knowing that he had to keep going. Jonathan's mentorship had opened his eyes to the possibility of real change, and Ethan didn't want to let anyone down. His mom noticed how quiet he had been lately and sat down with him one evening. "Mom," gently, "you know, you've been through a lot lately. It's okay to feel scared. But what you did, Ethan, was brave, and no one can take that away from you." Ethan looked down at his hands. "I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's hard." Mom, softly, "Doing the right thing is rarely easy, but you have to remember why you did it in the first place. You wanted to help someone who needed it, and look at how many people you've inspired since then." Her words sunk in, and Ethan realized that this journey wasn't just about him, it was about standing up for others and making the world a better place, even when it felt hard. Ethan decides to confront the bullying and the threats head-on. He tells Jonathan about the messages and the harassment at school, and Jonathan offers him support. Jonathan shares his own experiences with adversity and how he had to navigate similar challenges when he was young. Jonathan takes Ethan to visit the woman from the store, Mrs. Thompson, who had been the subject of the original altercation. Seeing her again reminds Ethan of why he took that stand in the first place. Mrs. Thompson thanks him again for defending her and tells him how much his courage meant to her. She also shares that she has been overwhelmed by the support from people who saw the video. Mrs. Thompson, gratefully, "You didn't just change that day for me, Ethan. You reminded me that there are still good people in this world." Ethan feels a renewed sense of purpose. He knows that the bullying and the threats are temporary, but the impact he made was lasting. He wasn't going to let the negativity stop him from doing what was right. Ethan's confidence grows as he starts to speak out more, both at school and in his community. With Jonathan's help, he begins to attend more events and meet more people who are working toward the same goals of equality and justice. The bullies at school don't stop, but Ethan feels stronger now, knowing that he's part of something bigger. Ethan being invited to speak at a community event that Jonathan's company is sponsoring. It's a big deal. Hundreds of people will be there, and Ethan is nervous about speaking in front of such a large crowd. He knows this could be a turning point for him, but the pressure is immense. As he prepares for the event, he receives one final anonymous message. "Don't think this is over. We're watching you." Ethan stares at the message, feeling the tension rising again, but this time he's not backing down. Will Ethan be able to deliver his speech? And who is behind the threats? Ethan had come a long way. From defending a stranger in a store to standing up to bullies and threats, he had faced more than most kids his age ever would. Now, he was preparing to step into a leadership role that he never expected, speaking at a community event in front of hundreds of people. But would the pressure get to him, or would Ethan rise to the occasion? The day of the community event arrived, and Ethan could feel the nerves building. Jonathan had been helping him prepare, coaching him on how to deliver a strong, heartfelt speech. But no matter how much he practiced, the idea of standing in front of so many people felt overwhelming. The event was bigger than Ethan had imagined. Hundreds of people were gathered in the auditorium, all of them eager to hear from local leaders and community members about how they could work together to create change. Ethan felt small as he watched the crowd from backstage, but Jonathan's presence beside him helped calm his nerves. Jonathan, encouraging. "You've got this, Ethan. Just speak from the heart. Remember why you're here." Ethan nodded, taking a deep breath as he waited for his turn. As Ethan steps onto the stage, he looks out into the crowd and sees faces of support, his mom, Mrs. Thompson, and even some of the classmates who had doubted him. The pressure is intense, but Ethan knows this moment is bigger than his fear. Ethan begins his speech, his voice shaky at first but gaining strength with every word. He talks about what happened at the store, how it felt to stand up for someone when no one else would, and how that one moment changed his life. He speaks about the importance of courage, of standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. As Ethan finishes his speech, the audience erupts into applause. The weight of the moment hits him. He had done it. He had faced his fears and stepped into a role of leadership he never expected. The applause is deafening, and Ethan knows that this is just the beginning of something much bigger. After the speech, Jonathan pulls Ethan aside and tells him that he's proud of how far he's come. But then Jonathan reveals something unexpected. "There's something else I've been meaning to tell you. The threats you've been receiving. I think I know who's behind them." Ethan feeling a mix of shock and anticipation. Who could it be? And what does Jonathan know? Who is responsible for the threats, and what will Ethan do with this new information? From here, the story will continue to build on Ethan's growth and the escalating tension surrounding the anonymous threats. The narrative will dive deeper into the challenges Ethan faces as he steps into leadership and uncovers the truth about who has been trying to stop him. The themes of courage, justice, and personal growth will remain central, while cliffhangers and mini-hooks keep the audience engaged. Let me know if you'd like to explore specific aspects of the story further, or if you'd like more development in any areas. Ethan had stood up to bullies, faced threats, and delivered a powerful speech to a large audience. But now, the mystery behind the anonymous threats was about to unravel. As Jonathan prepared to reveal the truth, Ethan's world was about to change once again. Ethan stared at Jonathan, his heart pounding in his chest. He had wondered for weeks who was behind the messages, the threats, and the lies at school. He had tried to push through the fear, but now, standing here with Jonathan, the truth was finally within reach. Jonathan hesitated for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. His face was serious, his eyes focused. "Ethan, you've handled everything that's come your way with incredible strength, but I didn't want to tell you this until I knew for sure." Ethan swallowed hard, nodding for Jonathan to continue. "I believe the threats are coming from inside my company." Ethan's eyes widened in shock. "What? But why?" Jonathan sighed. "There are people who don't want the initiatives we're working on to succeed. People who are threatened by change, by the fact that we're trying to make things more equal and inclusive. And when they saw how much attention you were getting, how your story was inspiring people, they saw you as a threat." The revelation hits Ethan hard. Someone within Jonathan's own company, people who were supposed to be on the side of justice, were the ones behind the threats. But who, and why were they so determined to stop Ethan and Jonathan's work? Jonathan explained that the company had been undergoing a transformation, one that not everyone supported. There were people who benefited from the status quo, people who didn't want to see the kind of progress that Ethan symbolized, and those people had tried to intimidate Ethan to protect their own interests. Jonathan, reassuring. "I'm not going to let them get away with this. I've been conducting an internal investigation and we're close to finding out exactly who's behind it. But I wanted to warn you, Ethan. Things might get harder before they get better." Ethan felt a mix of emotions, anger, fear, and determination. The idea that someone in Jonathan's company was working against them felt like a betrayal, but at the same time, Ethan knew he couldn't back down now. He had come too far to let the threats scare him off. Jonathan assures Ethan that he'll be protected and that the people behind the threats will face consequences. But the tension remains high. Who in Jonathan's company could be doing this, and how far would they go to stop Ethan and Jonathan's work? Just as Jonathan finishes explaining, his phone rings. He answers, and the expression on his face changes instantly. After a few moments, he hangs up and turns to Ethan, his voice serious. "We've found them, and you're not going to believe who it is." Who has been behind the threats all along, and what will Ethan and Jonathan do about it? The truth was out. The people behind the threats had been identified, and it wasn't who Ethan or Jonathan expected. But now that they knew who was responsible, the real battle was about to begin. Exposing the truth wouldn't be easy, and the consequences would be felt far and wide. Jonathan wasted no time after receiving the phone call. He asked Ethan to stay at his side as they prepared to confront the people responsible. Ethan felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach as they drove to the company's headquarters, where the confrontation was set to take place. As they arrived, Jonathan's legal team and a few trusted executives were already waiting. Ethan didn't know what to expect, but he could sense the tension in the air. Jonathan's face was set in a determined expression, his usual calm replaced by something more intense. When they entered the conference room, Ethan immediately recognized two familiar faces, Martin and Linda, high-ranking executives in the company who had always seemed supportive of Jonathan's vision. But now, as they sat across from Jonathan and Ethan, their expressions were cold, defensive. Jonathan, calm but firm. "We know what you've been doing. The messages, the threats, the attempts to undermine the work we're doing here, it's all been traced back to you." Martin and Linda didn't deny it. Instead, Martin leaned forward, his voice laced with bitterness. Martin, angry. "You think you can just come in here and change everything overnight? People like us have worked for years to build this company. We're not going to let you throw it all away to push your agenda." The confrontation is heated, and Ethan watches as Jonathan holds his ground. Martin and Linda's true motives are revealed. They had been trying to sabotage Jonathan's initiatives for equality and inclusion from the beginning, using their influence to resist the changes the company was making. Jonathan remains calm, but his words are sharp. He reminds Martin and Linda that the company's future isn't about maintaining the status quo, it's about creating something better, something fairer. He refuses to let their fear of change hold the company back any longer. But, as the argument continues, it becomes clear that Martin and Linda aren't just acting out of self-interest. They're part of a larger network within the company that has been resisting Jonathan's leadership from the start. The threat is bigger than Ethan or Jonathan realized. Jonathan realizes that this fight isn't just about two people, it's about a systemic issue within the company, one that will take more than just a confrontation to fix. The stakes are higher than ever, and if they don't act quickly, the entire initiative could be at risk. Martin and Linda walking out of the room, but not before Martin delivers one final threat. "You may think you've won, but this isn't over. There are more of us than you think." Ethan and Jonathan are left standing in the room, realizing that the battle ahead will be even more difficult than they thought. The audience is left wondering, how deep does the opposition run within the company? And what will Jonathan and Ethan do next to stop it? Ethan and Jonathan had uncovered the truth, but the fight was far from over. The forces working against them were stronger than they had anticipated, and the battle for justice was about to reach its peak. Now, it was time for the final stand. Would they be able to overcome the opposition and create the change they believed in? Ethan sat in Jonathan's office trying to process everything that had happened. The truth about Martin and Linda, the larger network within the company, the threats, they all weighed heavily on him. He had never imagined that doing the right thing could lead to so much conflict. Jonathan, however, was resolute. He knew that they couldn't back down now. The company was at a turning point, and if they didn't push forward with the initiatives they had been working on, everything could fall apart. Jonathan, determined. "We're not giving up, Ethan. This is bigger than just us. It's about creating real change, and sometimes that means facing tough battles." Ethan nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He had come too far to back down now. The fear and doubt that had plagued him earlier had been replaced by something stronger, a belief in the importance of standing up for what's right, no matter the cost. Jonathan and Ethan begin preparing for the next phase of the battle. They gather their allies within the company, those who believe in the same vision, and start working on a strategy to expose the network of people resisting the changes. But time is running out, and they know that the opposition will stop at nothing to protect their interests. As they move forward, Ethan starts to see the impact of their efforts. More and more people within the company begin to speak out in support of Jonathan's initiatives. The momentum is shifting, and for the first time it feels like they might actually have a chance to win. But the opposition isn't giving up easily. Martin and Linda, along with their allies, launch a counterattack, trying to discredit Jonathan and Ethan by spreading lies and misinformation. The tension reaches a breaking point as both sides prepare for the final showdown. Ethan knows that this is it, the moment they've been building toward. Everything is on the line, and if they don't succeed now, all of their work could be undone. The chapter ends with a tense boardroom meeting, where the future of the company's direction will be decided. Jonathan and Ethan make their case, presenting the evidence of the network's corruption and their vision for the future of the company. But just as they're about to win the room over, Martin stands up and delivers a shocking revelation that threatens to derail everything. What is Martin's revelation, and will it be enough to stop Jonathan and Ethan's plan? After weeks of facing threats, betrayals, and hidden opposition, Ethan and Jonathan's journey was coming to its final moment. The future of the company and their fight for justice rested on what happened next. In the boardroom, the tension was thick. Martin had just revealed a shocking accusation, attempting to discredit Jonathan and destroy Ethan's credibility. He claimed that the entire initiative for equality and inclusion was a ploy to cover up financial mismanagement, an outright lie, but one that landed hard in the room full of powerful decision-makers. Jonathan, calm as ever, didn't flinch. He stood up and presented undeniable evidence of Martin's and Linda's corruption, revealing the depth of their network's manipulation within the company. The room went silent as the truth settled in. Jonathan, firm. We've come too far to let people like Martin and Linda hold this company back. We're building something bigger than any one person. This is about doing what's right, and no amount of lies or threats will stop us. The board members murmured among themselves. Ethan, sitting next to Jonathan, could feel the weight of the moment. This was it. The future of the company, and everything they had worked for, was on the line. But deep down, Ethan knew they had done everything they could. It was up to the board now. Minutes passed, and finally the head of the board spoke. Board chairperson, calmly. We've reviewed all the evidence, and it's clear that the opposition within this company has been working against its best interests. Effective immediately, Martin and Linda are removed from their positions. Jonathan, your initiatives will continue, and we support your vision for the future. Ethan felt a wave of relief. They had done it. The opposition had been defeated, and the company was moving forward with Jonathan's vision of justice and equality. The fight was over, but the journey was just beginning. As the meeting ended, Jonathan turned to Ethan and smiled. Jonathan, proudly. You did it, Ethan. Without your courage, none of this would have been possible. Ethan smiled back, feeling the weight of the past weeks lift from his shoulders. He had learned that standing up for what's right isn't easy. It comes with challenges, risks, and adversity. But in the end, it's worth it. Ethan's journey was a reminder that courage isn't just about one moment. It's about continuing to do what's right, even when the odds are against you. His simple act of defending someone in a store led to something much bigger, a fight for justice and change that will inspire others for years to come. Ethan's life returned to some form of normalcy after that day. The company thrived under Jonathan's leadership, and the initiatives for equality and justice became a model for others in the industry. Ethan continued to grow, using what he learned from Jonathan to become a leader in his own right. He knew now that one small act could spark something much larger, and he was ready for whatever challenges came next. Ethan's story shows us the power of standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. What started as a single act of courage became a movement for change. So, what can you do to make a difference? If you liked this story and want to see more tales of courage and justice, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an inspiring moment. And don't forget to like and share this video. Let's keep spreading stories that remind us all of the impact one person can make.